Welcome to Caring Community with your host, Jay West. In this community, creative initiatives are welcomed. A culture of transformation is normal, and miracles are expected. Welcome to Caring Community.
Welcome to Caring Community. My name is Jay West, and I'm the host today, and it's good to have you here. And my guest or co-host or whatever you want to call him is my son, Jason.
Yeah, good to be back.
Yeah, do the fist bump.
There we go.
Yeah. So today we have an unusual topic in that I had a heart attack a couple weeks ago, and it came out of this as a surprise. I had had a physical about 7 months prior to that. My doctor said I was in peak health, the best he had seen me in 20 years. There's no history of heart disease in my family, as far as we know, back two or three generations, and so this was just a total surprise. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, some of my experiences, the testimonies. He was right there with me as it happened. That's why he's here today too. And so where should we start?
Well, talk about a little bit what happened, what were you experiencing physically that led up to that, and why did you feel maybe like it was something else initially too?
Okay. So I had back in January, I had a root canal, and I was having some pain with that, and had a similar experience to the heart attack in that I had been taking ibuprofen alternating with Tylenol, but I took some of it on an empty stomach, and I battled indigestion and heartburn over the years, and so I had a really bad, what I would describe, heartburn experience, and you were there for that as well. And it was sharp pain, but it was on the right side of my chest, not the opposite side where the heart was. But it felt, when I had the heart attack the other night, it felt the same. But that was back in January. And we'll never know whether that was somehow related or not. But that was the first one, and I was just in agony, holding and rolling and on my bed and trying to get relief until it finally subsided. That one took about maybe 30 to 45 minutes. And
Right.
and I remember you being scared at the time,
Yeah.
thinking that was something, but then it went away, and that was in the middle of January. So the middle of January through February through March into April, nothing.
Right.
So we thought it was actually a heartburn related experience, just really severe.
Right. Yeah. So when this one came around last week, we kind of felt like it was the same thing again. And you had been taking a lot of different medication with getting over some sickness and those
Right.
types of things. And so thought it might have just been that.
Right.
Again.
I was taking antihistamines. I'd had a cold, which morphed into a cough, and whenever I have a cold, I get a cough with drainage, and so I was taking antihistamines and Mucinex and things like that. And so I was having some of those same experiences. Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, I wasn't quite, maybe initially, I wasn't quite as alarmed the second time as I was the first time, because
Right.
I remembered how, some of the things we did to help you through the first incident, and I just said, okay, it's another one of those weird things. He's going to pull through this, and so I actually wasn't quite as concerned the second time,
Right.
because I'd been through it before with you.
Right.
And
The only difference
so,
was it was now centered over my heart rather than on this side,
yeah,
my chest.
which at that point in time, I didn't even know there was a difference. So that in my mind, I didn't even know that yet. But come to find out, this one wasn't going away, right? And kind of, how was it acting and what was happening?
So Monday I went to work, and I came back from work, and I ministered at a church, King of Kings Church. I'm on staff part-time there, and then was feeling kind of tired but not sickly, having some heartburn, mild heartburn. Took some heartburn lozenges that dissolve in your mouth, and that would kind of calm it down, and was just thinking, well, because I remember that was the first day that I'd gone without coffee. Coffee makes my heartburn worse too. So we had talked about that, so I went off coffee that day, but it was still the residual effect. And I came home because I had a speaking engagement way over in West Omaha, about 45 minutes from my house. And I came home, and I was feeling, before the speaking engagement, really, really bad. And feeling like the heartburn effect again. So I took another, some sort of lozenge thing that dissolves, and it seemed to help. And I I had chicken. I remember we had leftover fried chicken, and I ate the chicken. It felt pretty good, so I got dressed and I drove across town to this church where I was supposed to speak. This would have been Monday, April 4th. And I had spoken the day before at King of Kings on Sunday, April 3rd. I'd done a seminar on Saturday, April 2nd at King of Kings. So that whole weekend I had been speaking, talking to large groups of people. Everything seemed fine. So I went to this church and I got up there, and some of the pain in both sides, it was just really, and standing up was bad. Sitting down was pretty good, standing up was bad. And so I made a decision. I went back out to my car, took a couple of Tums. I read Psalm 91 over myself. Sitting there in the car, I felt good again.
Yeah, it was whenever you stood up that you
Right.
felt worse.
Right, right.
Yeah. And, I remember you had called me and said you were coming home. And I was concerned about you driving at that
Right,
point.
right.
But you kind of assured me you could do it, and really, that's just, and you just said, I just need to get home and rest. And so
Right.
I was
And
praying
that was
for
a
you to
blessing,
make it
'cause
home,
Yeah, because I had a 45-minute drive, but as I'm driving, I have the window down, getting some fresh air, and I'm starting to feel a whole lot better. I have 45 minutes home. I feel great. I get home, I think, well, it must have passed, whatever it was, sitting down, my car, and I'm a tall guy, so I have the seat back a little bit further than most, and it reclines a little bit to give me my leg room, and so it was just, I felt pretty good when I got home. I canceled, I got up there, I canceled, I just said, I can't do it, I'm not feeling good, I don't know what it is, and so I drove all the way home, and I don't know how long I was home, 30 minutes?
Yeah. it's
45
hard.
minutes?
Yeah. Time is difficult to tell in moments of crisis like that.
Right.
But probably felt like a lot longer than it was in some ways. But it started getting to worst it had been, I think, at that point then once you were home.
Right, so it got a lot worse, and it was an interesting thing that crossed my memory. I had had kidney stones back in 2014, I think. And honestly, I don't know which pain is worse, the kidney stones or the heart attack. My advice to you is don't have either one.
Yeah,
Okay?
right.
Don't have either one. They're really bad. But when I had kidney stones, I went to the ER at the hospital, and it took them 3 hours to get me in. And I remember I couldn't find a comfortable spot. I was on the floor. I was trying to lay across chairs. The pain in my lower back was severe, and I had to wait 3 hours to get in. And I remember the nurse saying something like, well, if you come in an ambulance, you get right into the ER. If you walk in, you got to wait in front of whoever's in front of you, or they prioritize you based on what they think is wrong with you. And I remember thinking about that, and because we were debating whether to call 911. And finally I thought, you know what, call 911, because I just started Medicare. I knew what my ambulance cost was. I think it's $280. And I thought, for $280, if this is my heart, I'll get in faster and they can deal with it. It might save my life. So.
That's right, yeah. So that's what I did. I called 911, and they came. I mean, they stayed on the line with me. They were great. They were talking me through different scenarios, different options, and it was very quick. And they were there. But they made sure to stay on the line with me until they got there. But it couldn't have been very long at all, that period of time. The interesting thing is once they got to the house and they were evaluating you, one of the first things they asked you some questions, and
Right.
they were of course wondering if it is your heart, and they decided to do an EKG on you,
Right.
and that came back to, well, tell them what the results were on that.
The EKG, and it wasn't just that one, it was every one of them in the hospital too. I must have done 20 EKGs in 4 days. But the guy, he was like 25, 30 years old. He said, your EKG is better than mine.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, so now what do we do? My EKG is reading like super positive.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they're saying, it's your choice whether you want to go to the hospital or not. At this point, all the pain has subsided.
Right.
So I'm sitting there kind of feeling almost stupid that I've called the fire,
Yeah.
EMS comes with a fire truck. There's 6 or 8 guys in my living room. They're all very nice, wonderful. Bellevue Fire Department, you guys were outstanding. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah,
So
for sure. But so keep in mind, at this point, we're not I mean, the thought has crossed our mind that it could be a heart attack, but we're not really heavily considering that yet. We're not.
Right.
We don't know what's happening. We
Right.
don't know what's going on. Whether it's
Right.
that, whether it's an allergic reaction, medication, heartburn, indigestion. We don't know what it is yet. We just know that there's something wrong, and we want. And you decided, well, I'm going to go in anyway, even though the EKG looks good. I'm going to go in. Go ahead and take me in, and we got to figure this out. What's going on?
So I rode in the ambulance. I took a selfie of me in the ambulance. But
Yeah.
at that point, I'm feeling pretty good. I had
Who else do you know who takes a selfie in the ambulance?
Yeah, besides
right?
me. Yeah. I took pictures in the operating room later too. And I had several people say, only I would do that.
Right.
But in both cases, the pain had subsided, the issue was gone at that moment, and it's just like I'm sitting here now. In terms of health, I felt pretty good. So I thought, well, why not? Take the picture. So anyway, they took me to Bellevue Medical, and they did CAT scan and some other tests and blood work immediately, and scheduled a, what's it called, angiogram, I think, where they run a camera up through your wrist. They run a camera with a wire all the way up to your shoulder and then into your heart to determine if there's an issue that needs correction. And in my case, there was. One artery had 2 blockages of 90% blockage in 2 different places in the same artery. And it was also, the artery was somewhat twisted. And so the cardiologist did not feel comfortable doing the procedure. And so I got a second ambulance ride from Bellevue Hospital to Clarkson Hospital in Omaha, where more highly trained cardiologists would be there to do this procedure. So.
Yeah, and that was at that point. Through that process, they also had, in hindsight, determined that it was a heart attack, and the way they were able to do that is through they take blood tests and they look for an enzyme to show up, and that enzyme continued to increase more and more, and that was the indicator that that it had happened. But it was more of a minor scale heart attack. It's that it doesn't show up on the EKG because there's no lasting heart damage.
Right.
So praise God for that.
Yeah.
But through the enzyme showing up, they can still tell that one happened though.
So it's the difference between like a bruise. This cardiologist called it a heart bruise. So like if you bruise your body and you hit something and your body turns purple, well, eventually that purple goes away and your normal skin tone is there. As opposed to, let's say you have a surgery and there's a scar. A scar there is indicating that there was permanent damage at one time. That's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I heard them say too.
Interesting thing too was, I'm going to back up before I forget it, I was scheduled to be in Houston that weekend when I had it. And 6 weeks prior, I was trying to make airline reservations and nothing was working. And usually I just press through and find something somewhere. And at some point I was praying, I just felt I had to give up and reschedule that Houston appointment. And that would have been catastrophic if I had been in Houston when this had happened.
Right.
I would have been without my primary doctor. He would have been 2,000 miles away. I would have been in somebody stranger's house. I wouldn't be able to fly for 2 weeks, so I wouldn't even be home now as I'm recording the show. I would not be home yet because you're not allowed to fly for 2 weeks after you've had this type of surgery. And so there just would have been all sorts of complications. And thankfully, it did not happen there. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You can see how God's care and His hand of protection was with you in a number of different ways. That being one of them. I remember hearing the report when back at Bellevue Medical Center before they moved you to the Med Center, UNMC. They had came with the findings of when they had run that initial procedure with the camera, and they determined they couldn't do the procedure. And one of the terms they used was high risk. It's a high risk procedure.
Right.
And that was probably at the point where I finally actually realized just how serious this was. It had gone from in a span of less than 24 hours. It had gone from what we thought was maybe just bad heartburn or maybe an allergic reaction of some kind to all of a sudden now I'm thinking life or death, and I'm just thinking, how has this escalated that quickly to be this severe and this major of an event? So, and they had to take you to the med center because they didn't have the personnel, the staff, the equipment, they needed, and they said, this is really sensitive, we need to make sure we do this well. And to make this as, eliminate as many risks as possible,
Right.
so that it will be successful. But that was when it really hit me just how serious it was, and that was when, I began to worry. I began to have more major concerns at that point.
And that's because, if you're new watching, my wife passed away 15 months ago, his mother, and he didn't want the thought of losing another spouse or losing another parent in a very short amount of time. And it crossed my mind when that one doctor came in and said, you could die on the operating table, it's possible. And my thought was at the time, well, if I die, I'm with Diane, my wife, and Jesus in heaven. If I live, I'm with Jason and Jesus on earth. It's a win-win situation for me. I wasn't thinking the way he was thinking. I was thinking the way I was thinking,
Right.
And so there's lots of things going on, swirling. There's a lot of activity, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically. I've been telling friends recently, I had an emotional heart attack 15 months ago when Diane went on to be with heaven. Now I've had a physical heart attack. And fortunately, our faith is strong, so we believe we would not have a spiritual heart attack. Lots of people were praying for us, our church. I estimated when I got back, based on social media reports and notes and comments and everything else, I estimated roughly 1,000 people were praying for me during those 2.5, 3 days that this whole thing unfolded, and which was remarkable, really. Really is remarkable. We value and appreciate the value of prayer, and we'll actually be talking about prayer in the next TV show, because we have a National Day of Prayer Breakfast here in Omaha coming up on Thursday, May 5th at King of Kings Church at 7 a.m. in the morning. So we're going to be talking about that. So we have about 10 minutes left, though. I want to talk about some of the other things that... So the surgery itself, normally to put a stent in, I'd have 2 stents put in. Normally, just have a stent put in takes about an hour. And this surgery took 3 hours. And it was complicated, again, because there were 2 stents, but also, as we said before, the artery was actually twisted. Kind of like I can't think of the term. Your hose gets twisted at home. And they'll twist it, it'll knot, it'll kink. That's kind of what I was experiencing. And so they had to figure out how to unkink my heart in that one artery, which is, there's 2 hearts, and this was on the right heart, and then how to put the stents in. And they did all of that. The first one, they did the camera and everything was through my wrist. The second one was through my groin, coming up this way and around. And I don't know how they do all that. The part that was discouraging to me, if there was anything, was they keep you awake for the surgery. And so I was awake for 3 hours, groggy the first hour, maybe 2 hours, but then that began to wear off, and I was aware that where I was, but I couldn't really focus. But the last hour, lots and lots of pain. I was battling a chronic cough at the time, and I would cough, and they'd say, stop coughing. I say, can you stop coughing when you have a chronic cough? And the surgeon said, well, no. And I said, well, then quit asking me to. I'm flat on my back. I can't have anything to drink. I can't, when you have a cough, you drink some water, it usually subsides. I couldn't do that. You're not allowed to have anything when you're in surgery. And so, and then I was having pain in my heart as they were doing the procedure. And it was on a scale of 1 to 10, it was an 11. And it was just, for an hour, and they wouldn't give me any medicine that made me groggy again. So it was just it was really a tough deal.
Yeah, the cough was a totally unrelated issue that you had ongoing for a while, but that just added another magnitude to the issues in various ways, because every time you cough, you move. When it came to the healing process to try to heal the wound from where they did the surgery, that just kept getting irritated and would start bleeding again because you'd cough, and that just ongoing issue.
Because when I came out, they won't let you move. You're flat on your bed in your hospital room, but they won't let you move until the bleeding has stopped for an hour, 2 hours. And when I first got there, it was oozing, because I was coughing, and every time you cough, it affects your groin, and you cough, and And so it was oozing more blood, and so there was another complication there. But God got us through it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Praise God, he did.
Yeah. And actually came home the next day, had the echocardiogram, had another EKG. I had to walk down the hallway while they were monitoring my heart in the hospital, and they determined I was fine. And my doctor said I don't need cardiology rehab, actually ahead of the game. And I think part of it is what you said earlier about there's no permanent damage to my heart.
Right, right.
And if there was permanent damage, I think I probably wouldn't even be doing the show right now.
No, keep in mind, if you're not aware, I mean, he's only just been out of the hospital for just over a week at this point while we're airing the show right now.
Right.
And look how great you're already doing. I mean, you're not all 100% yet,
Right.
but you're doing pretty remarkable
So
for this.
I'm walking 20 to 30 minutes a day, twice a day. I drove the car here. So yeah, I've been out of the hospital just 8 days. So, and normally they have this chart of how far you can walk the first week, second week, third week. Normally at 8 days you would only be walking like 7 to 10 minutes a day, and I'm walking basically 2 30-minute segments a day right now. So really ahead of the game, and thankful, grateful for a second chance at life. And
yeah, we see the hand of God, the grace of God on you, and all
Right.
of that.
Right.
You know, and His grace is sufficient, and we know that. And that's what got me through. That's what got you through. You know, back to what we were saying earlier about just my experience, what's going through my mind, because as we were saying, I lost my mom just over a year ago. What's going through my mind is I can't do this again. You know,
Right.
I am not ready for this. And when are you ever ready for it? But
Right.
but I'm like, this is way too soon. I can't. You know, I didn't. You know, my mom was in the hospital for 153 days or something like that.
Right.
And I didn't want to ever set foot in the hospital again. Yeah, you know, and so just to come back with another parent in the hospital.
Well, and something you alluded to just a little bit ago, how it went from so serious, how it went from we thought it was heartburn or a reaction to a medicine to an actual heart attack in 24 hours.
Yeah.
If you remember with Diane, you know, she went in for an infusion. I dropped her off that morning.
Mm-hmm.
And that evening she's in the hospital. And if you may remember, she went in the 6th floor, cardiology floor, because she had AFib, her heart was racing.
Mm-hmm.
They put her in ICU the next day because they over-medicated her. Remember when her heart rate dropped to, her blood pressure dropped to like 40/20. I was standing there when it happened. And you know, I thought we were going to lose her that day. You know, so we went from, hey, I just dropped you off here yesterday, I was going to pick you up after your infusion, to now you're in ICU. That was in 24 hours. That was another similar thing where it just rapidly escalated.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So to go through that again was just almost too much.
Unbearable.
But God's grace was sufficient. He got us through. And I'm so relieved and thankful. People ask me how I'm doing now, and I just say relieved and thankful. That's what I keep telling them.
He's so gracious. We have this board game with tiles. It's called Corco, and he just lets me win all the time.
That's
I don't know why.
I'm just happy you're here. That's all I'm saying.
He lets me win the game. So, yeah. So I don't. We're not here to give advice on your health or anything, but if you have any kind of signals from your body that something might be wrong in any area, my encouragement is check it out. I'm one to procrastinate and say, I'll get through it, prayer will help me, whatever. I'm changing that just a little bit as the seriousness of this has developed, just to, you know, go to the doctor, whatever. Maybe you can't afford a doctor, I get that, but there are people that can help you, your friends will help you. Don't wait till it's too late. Don't wait till it's too late.
Yeah.
So, and we say a similar thing too on life insurance. You know, I'll just bring this up real briefly. I had really good life insurance on me and really bad life insurance on my wife because she was always healthy. 37 years of our married life, she was healthy and I was the one who was battling things. In the last few years, I got better till this thing happened, and she got worse, you know. And so I've talked to lots of couples that they are unbalanced in terms of life insurance. The husband has a lot and the wife has nothing. So It's not a fear thing. It's just a matter in every area being prepared. Being prepared. Do the best you can, to live the best you can, eat the best you can, exercise the best you can. You know, part of this could have been contributed to, I was overweight for 5 years. I mean, I weighed 100 more pounds than I do now, basically. And God gave me an eating plan, and it's in my 4th book. And my wife, she was overweight too, and we followed that plan for a year. And between us, we lost about 140 pounds. And we just changed our eating habits. We didn't change our exercise habits, we just changed our eating habits. You know, and so there's always something we can do to make our lives better. And whether you're spiritual, we have a spiritual component, we believe in God, you might not, that's okay. Not saying we're right, you're wrong, etc. But your physical body, there are things you can do.
Yeah.
So do the best you can to get healthy. That's my encouragement today.
That's good. And maybe we're probably about out of time.
We
here,
are out of time. We have about 1 minute.
So in your 1 minute, what do you do moving forward? How has this impacted your life and how you live from here?
I'm changing eating styles now. Like I love coffee, and I put a lot of flavored creams in it. Well, flavored cream has high fructose corn syrup, and high fructose corn syrup adds to the plaque in your heart. So now I'm measuring it in a spoon rather than just dumping it in. You know, now I'm measuring in a spoon. I'm still using it, but substantially less. The Bible says all things in moderation. So I'm just making course corrections. I'm going to exercise more frequently. I already started walking again, and you know, I get it's harder in the winter, like where we live, and but just do what you can.
That's right.
Do what you can, and maybe get an accountability partner, somebody to hold you accountable for what you want to do too. So. This is Caring Community. We care for you. We care for people in our community. We thank you for tuning in today. It's my son, Jason. I'm Jay West. Thanks a lot. God bless you. We'll see you on the next show. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.